What's up, everybody? I'm back with another episode of the Keep Going podcast. Today's guest is Brent Allen. He's a full-time adventure athlete, water protector, environmental activist, and change maker. Brent is Cherokee, and his name reflects his actions. AMA-UK-SAS-DEE, which means water protector in Cherokee, and he's definitely lived up to his name. He has built a career in the lifestyle sports industry that spans 3 decades. He has also founded 2 nonprofits in the past decade built around protecting the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and OKC's Olympic training site for paddle sports. He currently works part-time at REI COOP in Oklahoma City and is building the Respect the Land Oklahoma cultural movement to clean up Oklahoma's waterways. He's a joy to be around, a real example of paying it back and really making a difference. He was such a joy to be around, and I can't thank him enough for his time. I hope you all enjoy this episode. As always, keep going. Thank you, Brent. This is awesome. I appreciate you coming by, brother. I know we were talking a little bit off the recording, so it's funny because when I was talking to Polly, I was like, Brent just gives you this energy like he's known you a long time. And I mean that in a good way where it's comforting. And he's like, yeah, he's just stoic and intentional. And, the reason Polly did the podcast was because you said if it scares you, you should probably do it. And now we're sitting here. So I got to say thank you for multiple stuff, man.
It's, I think the older you get, the more you realize you're here for a reason. And a lot of it's helping other people along the way. And to get out of their comfort zone, after meeting Polly and having an understanding of his background and, for both of us, people that really have lived this lifestyle of being outdoors and doing things and traveling and is the thing that I found when I was talking to him was I think when people believe, not everybody, about talking about their story and sharing it, that it's bragging. Or it is about ego and pride. And I told Polly, I go, this has nothing to do with any of that. This is a paradigm shift. You're here to share your light of all these things that you have done that have made you who you are, and you've lived a lifestyle. And a lot of people don't even know that that's an option, that you can even do those things. And I'm sure if I hadn't been gone from Oklahoma, 28 years and then created my first business and started just this evolution of finding something I was interested in and then taking the steps to do it. And then once you've done that once, the process never changes, ever. You're just applying it to something different.
Oh, I love to hear how you said it's not bragging, because it's usually the people with the most impactful style stories that don't want to share or do have those feelings. And then they start talking about it and you're like, man, that helped me. And if it helped me, then I know it's helping other people, because like you said, when we were out there making coffee, you were like, it's about showing people younger than you what's possible. And that's that in the most ideal way.
Yeah. I mean, the whole trajectory of living longer and having lived life and having experiences, using the good and the bad to help other people. And usually the bad is the things that are going to be the most pronounced, that allow you to be more empathetic of the human condition, because we're all the same. A lot of people just don't know that there's these choices are out there. And I've always been, you got tons of choices. It's more about make a decision and accept what goes with it and start doing it. And it just becomes a way of life over. And that's why it's like with sport and stuff, we call it lifestyle sports. It is. It's tied. It's who you are, being connected to nature. And I don't think I understood that, how much that was a natural part of who I was being Cherokee, because getting involved with anything with activism and protecting our natural world, I didn't really put all that together till late in life. I've always been outdoors. I've always been connected. I've always loved nature and being in it. And so, yeah, you become more intuitive of the less you're around a bunch of noise, like especially surfing. Surfing is immersive. You're in the environment, you're moving, and the best surfers know how to read water by lots of time in the water to understand what's going to happen, what's going to happen after that, and where to be to catch that wave or which wave. And I think that just accelerates that natural predisposition of having this environmental sense of what's happening.
When did you do most of your surfing?
Once we moved to California in 2001, of living in Carmel by the Sea, California, I lived in California when I was a child from 65 to 71 in Rancho Palos Verdes. I always wondered as a kid how different I might have been if we never left Southern California and all the sports that I would have done probably growing up there. I just was able to apply that to later in life of being in charge of a lot of things for one of the biggest triathlon event management companies there. But I was like, I'm at the ocean. I'm going to learn how to surf. I'm going to learn about being a waterman. I'm going to learn how to do this. And I began. And
what age was that?
Let's see. So I'm 60 and it's 25. And so late 40s.
That's awesome.
And so, but it applied to everything that I'd already said before. It's like, this is how you go do something. Get around people that know more than you.
Yeah.
Take lessons, let them show you how, and don't worry about anything else. Because if you don't have humility, which is just being a student, be a student for the rest of your life, and you'll have a rad life.
Yeah.
When you shut that down and you close your mind and your heart about stuff, you're done growing as a human being. And so the ocean really filters so much of, and when you talk to surfers, it's like, it's a different world of your connection to this planet and water. So I think that accelerated my work in protecting the ocean, protecting everything that lives in it, understanding how much harm we as humans are doing and have done. And it's just unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And so those were things that really created the trajectory of when I was around a pod of humpback whales in Stillwater Cove at Pebble Beach.
Wow.
And
on your surfboard?
What's that?
You're on your surfboard at the
time? I'd left to go, and we hadn't talked about, I've been a race announcer, commentator in endurance sports for 25 years. So I was gone that weekend to do an event. And I said, no one had ever seen this many humpback whales this close to shore on the Monterey Peninsula, because it used to be a location of whaling in history. And so the thing that is mind-blowing about all this is whales can live up to 200 years old. Oh, wow. So if you think about that living creature that might be in front of you, has been on this planet that long, and how much wisdom that is, and it was in the ocean before there was noise in the ocean, that they've learned over years to not get close to areas that they were killed from past experience. Okay. So they'd stay further out. And so time had passed, and all of a sudden these humpbacks had come into, so you have Carmel Bay, there's Carmel Beach, and here's Pebble Beach and Stillwater Cove. So you have a really deep trough right here. And so when I got home that Sunday night, I said, if these whales are still here, I'm going to go get one of my 14-foot paddle boards and paddle out and just see. So they did. It happened. And I went to Stillwater Cove. I got a GoPro on my chest to put one on the front of the board and paddled out to what's called Ghost Tree. And if you look up Ghost Tree, it is one of the big wave breaks in California. Everybody knows about Maverick, so it's a little further. But Ghost Tree is a place where a wave can break 60 feet tall.
Oh,
and
shoot.
People have surfed, but it's like a lot of things have changed with that. So it's deep water. And so I got on my board and I'm paddling out, and no one's out. It's just me. And
You weren't nervous? You just felt called to do it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I could hear in the distance, they were lunge feeding, where they blow bubbles to drive the fish to the surface, and then they all come up at one time and open their mouths and just take, thousands and thousands of anchovies or whatever in. And the sound of it, I'd never heard anything like it. It sounded like an old boat creaking, like alien voices of sound. And I was like, wow, what? And so the one thing about surfing that you have to learn is what's under the water. Where are the rocks? Where are the reefs? Okay. Where is everything? So you know where to be and not to be. And so I moved myself out there. There's all these huge kelp forests. And so it's really dense, and whales are not going to go under that. So I paddled out and got on the point of Ghost Tree and just sat there and was watching. And they were coming up to me, meaning I'm just doing nothing. And they would be 25 feet away, come up, and when they breathe out, it's 300 miles an hour when they exhale.
Oh, when you see that big...
And so it was weird because it was like I'd never been that close to a whale and physically in the ocean with one. And I was like, wow, this is just crazy. And so I'm out there filming this the whole time. And I got to a point where I was like, this is way too good to be true. And that I'm having this time and no one's here. And I'm seeing all this and getting it recorded. So I started to work my way back. And then I was like, I think I'm going to go back. And so I turned around, I started going back. And then I looked down, and in front of me is tons of bait fish, the shimmer of all of them on their sides. And I'm like, uh-oh. And so you do not want to be above that.
Yeah, because they're going to come up and open up.
So I am cranking to get towards the kelp bed, and literally, I get all this on footage. I have two come right in front of me, turn on their backs, take gulps, and go down. And so I put myself back in the same position, and I could see out in the distance there's a place south of Carmel called Point Lobos, and I see these two divers coming in a Zodiac towards all the whales. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'd been there that long and no one had looked and seen any of this. And so they get up and they've got their cameras and stuff. And what I didn't know until later is white sharks, dolphins, whales, they can do what's called spy hop. That's where a shark or a whale intentionally puts its head out of the water and is looking around of what's on the surface. And so 25 yards in front of me, I'm like looking this way, and I just kind of look over, and this one comes straight up, spy hopping, and I look right at it, and it's like looking at me, and then it goes right back down, and it didn't make any more of a ripple than an Olympic high diver.
A dolphin or a shark?
A humpback whale.
Oh.
Yeah, just explaining spy hopping of what they do.
Okay, but that big old whale did that. Oh my gosh.
And so I get all on video.
And you saw its eyes, right?
Yeah.
What was that like, seeing that?
Well, that was the trip, is if you just look at documentaries of anybody that are committed people to protecting the ocean, whether it's Jacques Cousteau or his son or anybody else, they will all tell you there will be a story that they had an experience in the ocean looking into the eye of a whale, a dolphin, whatever, and it changed them for the rest of their life. And so that was actually the moment that when I left and all that was over, I'd never really paid attention about protecting the environment, what was happening to the environment. I was always in the environment, either training or racing and all the different endurance sport things or being in the ocean. But then there was a thing called Whale Fest that they have at Old Fisherman's Wharf in Monterey, and they had Surfrider had a booth there, And so I went there and I was just talking to them, and they explained to me about microplastics and plastics. I never knew any of this about, what was happening of plastics breaking down and then being ingested by marine life and seabirds, and how it was killing and all this stuff and that little window right there, I just basically was in my office or whatever in Carmel and just said, I'm going to do everything I can figure out with everything I've ever done in life to change this. And I am taking like personal responsibility. I'm going to be active and start doing stuff. And that's kind of where all of it kicked off. And then it was kind of a system of, it's like when your parents pass. My mother passed in 2016, my father in 2012. And on my father's side was how I'm Cherokee. And so around the same window of time, my wife, Kelly, that we've been together since November of 1982, dated 9 years, and our wedding anniversary is September 21st, so we'll be married 34 years. And so
congrats.
This crazy history of life, of everything that has played out. But Kelly, like a lot of people, she was always scared before that she would get cancer. She would say this to me all throughout growing up, of like, about getting sick. So her family finally convinced her to get a colonoscopy. And literally her first colonoscopy, we find out she has stage 3 rectal cancer. And we're like, everything stops. And I'm like, all right, what's the next thing to do? And so now, fortunately, I have my own business, so I can work around, and shift jobs to other people, that with race commentating and other things. So I can be there with Kelly and take care of her, because it was like first thing radiation, second thing she has to have surgery and another surgery, then chemotherapy, and it was just as gnarly as it gets, because there's, my love for my wife and my protective nature of her, of like wanting to do everything I could possibly do that she would not suffer any more than she had to. And so it was like mentally all engaged. And part of my personal therapy would be, I could get little windows and I would just get on my paddleboard and go out paddle into Carmel Bay and be out there in the ocean and just, see whales. But then that's when I started really being proactive about cleaning up and doing something in the ocean about plastics in the kelp beds. And so I created the first ever stand-up paddle kelpboard cleanup, of understanding how all this plastic was getting stuck in the kelp beds, and for us to go out and be able to collect all this and then collect data to start to build this case study of what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so the thing that was another pivotal time that happened in all this was right before that, in 2017, is when Standing Rock was happening. And so I'm sitting in Carmel, California. I'm a kid that grew up in Oklahoma that was Cherokee, but not on a reservation, never having any kind of family around me to teach me anything. It was just like, you were Cherokee. That was it. There was nothing else to it. And I think a lot of people, and I still hear it when I'm here now, it's like, what can they give me? What is that, the whole thing about, oh, you're Cherokee, so you can get, and I didn't know anything about any of it. And so I'm sitting there watching Standing Rock, and for some reason, above any other level I've ever felt, I was just could not believe this was happening. And this was happening on their own reservation, all these things. I didn't know much of any of it besides this was so implicitly wrong, it was making me sick. And so I'm watching that, and, almost was a sense of duty. I think a lot of people, obviously, that went up there when that was going down and all these things, but it was pulling at me. And so after my mother passed in 2016, my grandfather and their family moved to Tulsa in 1924.
Oh, wow.
And so right in the middle of everything oil. So he was an attorney there for 50 years, involved in the oil industry and also representing tribes for different things. And I know he was, but no one ever told me, and I still never could find out, that he was an honorary chief in some of this stuff for the work that he was doing. And he was a Marine in World War I. He actually went to Temple Law School and slept in a pup tent while he went to college from the plane. But I could tell he had, without really knowing him ever, that he had this character of protecting people that needed to have somebody representing or helping them, that they aren't being taken advantage of. And so he'd gotten all these mineral rights as throughout this and was right in the middle of it. So he'd do legal work and get mineral rights instead of money. And so all of a sudden I got all these mineral rights turned over to me and my sister. And no one had ever done due diligence outside of, we had the legal stuff transferred over to our names and all that. I was the only one that's ever really looked into it to really find out and understand it. And so it's crazy. But as I'm looking through all these mineral rights, I find out we have like 14 sections of mineral rights in North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
And then I find out that they're all in Mount Trail County, North Dakota, the start of the location for the Dakota Access Pipeline. So I'm now, all this is coming in revelation, and that my brain, I'm just slowed down because I'm helping Kelly. Mm-hmm. So I'm really being able to really dig into stuff and of getting this, and I'm like, Standing Rock's happened. This is and no wonder I'm really, why? I'm feeling all this. Mm-hmm. And so after Kelly, after we got her out of the woods and cancer free, I'd said the whole time, I go, I have to go to Standing Rock. I know this is something I'm supposed to do. And so this whole version of everything we're talking about was basically, I 100% believe within all of my Cherokee ancestry, I was put here to do everything I've done and learn things that I had to learn in California and do things I'd do in California. And then everything else happened for me to intentionally come back here to be of service. And I knew before we came back that there were two primary things. I wanted to understand what it meant to be Cherokee and learn about our tribe that I never knew at all. And in general, because I'd always been told throughout life I was related to Will Rogers. We were. And then, so when I dug into it and stuff, it was all true. And
that's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, because I thought about, everything he was. This is before it was everybody talked about it, but no one had gone into ancestry stuff of all this information that's been built out that you actually can really fact find. And so you're thinking about these people that came before you and what did they do with their life and the impact they had with their life and, of communicating and creating change and being just commonsensical about wisdom of right and wrong. And so I end up going out there and I go to Mount Trail County. I go to the county courthouse. I research all the papers. I already knew everything was there. I'm looking at my grandfather's name written by hand into these ledgers and stuff of when he got these mineral rights. And then I got a big county map, and Mount Trail County, North Dakota is huge. And I start driving the county. every single space that we had mineral rights. I drove and went and looked, and I only saw 2 spots that had any kind of oil wells near them, because it can cross stuff from one side to another to escape creating easements and all that kind of stuff. And so I followed all that up. Nothing, no oil from any of these things that we had. So then my next stop was Standing Rock. And I went to Standing Rock. I go into their headquarters and ask if I could talk with a person that had to do with the water for the tribe and stuff. And they say, that's Doug Kroghost. And literally never met him, never anything. I sit down with Doug at his desk, and he starts, and I said, I came here to understand this. Period. I just want to know, like, the rest of the story that's coming from you guys here. And I told him about how all this stuff kind of was happening. He talked to me for 3 hours and tells me the whole story about Standing Rock and everything else. And I'm just like blown away. The other thing, I was talking to a person, Michelle, that we were talking about, and she's Lakota, and her son that's a free skier, Connor, he's Lakota, and we were talking about going on to Standing Rock, the reservation, there is a feeling, there's a sense. And if you are someone that feels more deeply and senses stuff, I was like, the only words I could say is, this is like hallowed land. This is real. There's something here.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the sky and the clouds and the horses in the fields, and it was like no joke. And so then the other thing, I was able to meet with Danielle Sheehan, I think is her last name. She was a sitting judge at the tribe, young lady, and in charge of PR. And so she met with me and spoke to me for 2 hours. And the questions that I asked her, I'd never been on a reservation. I had no sense of this. And I said to Danielle, I go, how could you ever trust anybody about all of this? Laramie Tree, all this stuff. And she said, Brent, if people come to us straight at us with honorable intentions, we accept them with open arms. And I was like, whoa. And I was thinking the other thing, I'd never even had this thought, I don't think ever in my life, was after talking to them, and they then invited me to sit in on the 150th anniversary of the Laramie Treaty. So everything about the Black Hills, all that, and as a guest. And this all just happened. This was not planned out, none of this. And so I was able to go sit and listen. And if you've ever seen any of these people that are Lakota, at least they're big. I mean, big people. Like, it's like, no way would you mess with these people. And so, of course, I had first guy comes up to me when I sit down, because obviously I'm not got to have black hair and ponytails and have all that. They're like, who is this guy? And who vetted him to come be here? Yeah. And then came up, do you know you can't record anything? You can't. And they'd already told me. I was like, whatever you say it's what's going to happen. And I told them, who had invited me, all the rest of it. And then a little bit passed, and another guy comes up to me, same thing. And then there's one other person, and same thing. And then after it was all done, they stopped the ceremony and then passed around the pipe. I'd never done that. And then they broke for dinner. And so I was like, when Doug told me that the elders in the tribe were basically saying, when you're in front of these dogs and the cannons and spray and all that, our job is to pray for those people. And I was like, wow. And when when I walked away from it, it was like the first time I'd ever thought to myself in my life, these are the most honorable people I've ever met in my entire life. Basically, their position was, we are not going to change who we are and what we represent as what we are for anything. Mm-hmm. We're carrying ourselves here.
That, yeah.
Doesn't matter about, has nothing to do with anything else. And I was like, wow. And so.
That's heavy, though, as far as intention goes, because like you just made your mind up, and then all of a sudden you're in these ceremonies, and it's, I don't know, where my mind would go would be like, am I supposed to be here? Am I allowed to be here? And that's just it, though. Just like the cleaning up the kelp beds and going to see the whales like you did. You just made a decision. And I think that that's powerful for people because it really is that simple. Now, does that mean everything's going to happen that way? No. But if your mindset is like pure, I think it does happen more often than you think, because you're literally sitting in there in a peace pipe ceremony and then breaking for dinner. Even if that was your only interaction, that was a big deal. But you showing up and saying, who do I talk to about this? And they're like, oh, you talk to this guy. And you're like, so I'm this random guy that's interested in this. Can you tell me more? And they included you as like, it shows what a pure heart can do.
I never really thought about it till you just put it that way, was Doug did exactly what Danielle had said. If you come straight at us,
yeah,
and with honorable intentions, and that's pretty much what I do with everything. I mean what I say. I am absolutely sincere. I really do care, and none of it's a facade. It's 100% authentically who I am and why I put focus on changing things for the better. And when things like our planet and our water and our people, all these things, are being polluted, destroyed, whatever, I find my space and then I move at it. And my motives are clear. It's never about pointing fingers, putting anything else. It's like, for us to change things, you have to take action. And action starts with awareness. And action starts with inventory. It's like coming back to Oklahoma. I've spent 5.5 years of due diligence. I didn't just come back. I've been visiting the cultural centers. I've been talking to more people. I've been learning stuff. FAM opened up. And so I have perpetually been a student. And I don't see that changing for the rest of my life about our tribes and the history and all these things. That it's what's required to be able to be a high-level communicator, that you can learn these things so you can speak on them to create a change and inspire other people to get involved. Because once we started doing this work that I was doing in California of that, then it became the cruise ship industry coming in, and we were able to shut that down. And that was like, you can change the world. One person, if you just start moving towards, be open, honest, be clear, and of what it's about, there will be a natural attraction. I mean, there is no doubt there is a bigger picture of this relationship, meeting you, things that have happened since.
Yeah.
And so it's just this movement of, you find the next 1%er all the time of the people that are the doers in the world. It was like when you talked about the podcast, and it's like you thought about it or whatever, but then just do it. Mm-hmm. Get to work, change it. Once you know how to create something, you're just doing the same thing with something else. But it requires people that are the doers in the world. And then the people that are inspiring more people. I could do that. And you just show them the way, because we need more people that want to make things better. And my old trajectory being in Oklahoma, working with our tribes, working with my own tribe, and creating a high-level inventory of everything that's polluting our waters and our land and our air, and proactively changing it, period. I don't make it complicated, besides because it's easy to get moved out of the way. Even like some of the things we were talking about earlier today. You can learn a little bit more about something, and it might change everything about what you thought you were going to do about something. And then all of a sudden it's at a level that requires something else to happen. So it goes back to humility and not pride, and that level of humility to allow things to, you now know that, you get other people involved in it, but continue staying your course of what you really are working on.
Yeah, I think something that hit hard from what you said is like how our relationship is already transpired, even though it's very early. It's like, I noticed it in the business side from networking, and you've owned businesses and you know how that world works. And that was impressive to me too. Like one conversation and you can change your whole business, or you can change your future. But since the podcast, the people I've come across, I just feel like at first I thought it was just how I feel. Like, oh, I want to talk to this person. Oh, I want to talk to this person. Now it seems like it's not me. Like there's a reason, And sitting here with you already, like the things that have gone on in our early relationship is like, dang, where could this go? Like, I'm glad I met this person and was open enough to have a conversation. Because even when you called me and you were talking to me about something we were going to possibly try and take care of, like when you first called and I answered the phone and you start talking, it seemed so directed towards me that I was like, I don't even know if this is like for me, but why does it seem so right? And so like just to meet you in general is like interesting to where it could go in the future. Like it's just wild because like I said, I've seen it all on the business side. But since I've dove into this journey, I've just connected with people I would have never connected with. Mm-hmm. And now I've got a relationship with you that's only going to go further. But it's like, I did love nature as well. And I do want to make a difference in these things. And it's like, okay, well, let me put you in position to be around like-minded people. Like you said, be a student. So I commend you for your intention, but also your open-mindedness, and I think it's cool to see because it's different ages too. I'm 33, you're 60. The other people you met may be in their 40s. It's a range, but together it's progress, and I think that's pretty impressive. So I appreciate what you do.
Well, I think that's if you just look at the design of tribes, you have the young people and you have the elders.
Yes, sir.
If you're in the surf industry, it's the same because it's all Polynesian culture. And, I paddled with a outrigger team in Monterey.
What's an outrigger?
Outrigger is long canoes that have two things and have, it's called an AMA. And you have 6-man, 4-man, 3, 2, 1 OC. So it's like OC1, one person. And it's all Hawaiian culture. So everything you do at workouts and even the preparation of the boats and everybody getting ready before you go practice and get in the ocean, it's all very customs and designs of respect for the ocean, respect for the boat, respect for, the people around you. And it's very, same thing, intentional. It's just a different version of tribes. And so when I got around these people that, I just connected more with Uncle Les, that, you're an uncle, just like in Native American stuff. It's a term of respect, just like being an elder. You're an uncle or an auntie. They say the same. So I just kind of found a place with Uncle Les. The guy's huge. He's like 6'5", and he was the one in charge of the team and his family from the Hawaiian Islands. And I just, I got myself out of my normal, get out of your comfort zone, do something you've never done. Because every time you do that, it will make you stronger in the thing you were doing. Like, so if it was stand-up paddle that I got involved with in 2008, you know, you have a paddle that's taller than you, and it's a lot of power muscles that have to do with your core completely. But it's way different all of a sudden when you sit into a boat and that paddle's this big, and that you are having to follow the cadence of the person in charge, which is the person in back that's calling out how fast you're going and how much, you know, you're paddling every time. And then when they call the changeover, when you change to the other side, all of it. And even what happens when you go to a turn buoy, of everybody's role. Everybody has a position, just like any sport, of what their job is in that canoe. And so that was actually one of the of racing. The last race I did with them, we were at Horseshoe Bend, right outside of Sausalito in the San Francisco Bay, and we won. And I was like,
Wow.
And so we were like out. So there's like the Golden Gate Bridge, and you went out around Angel Island. You have Alcatraz out here, and then coming back, and then final sprint in. And
How many people were on your boat?
6. So it's 6-man outrigger, at least the racing. But the thing that was changed for me of being involved in endurance sport is everything was me, me, and me in everything I'd done. But the only other thing that I invited in to my life to do that was a team was they have a race called Molokai to Oahu. And so it's a stand-up paddleboard world championship. So you have prone paddle, where you have somebody laying flat on a board, paddling like that, or up on their knees, paddling like this. And you have boards that are, I think, 12, 14, 60, and unlimited. And you are racing from the island of Molokai to the island of Oahu over the Molokai Channel, which is called the Channel of Bones. And it is like 2,300 feet deep, and you are in it. I mean, there's no of us training for this. That I got a friend that was a Marine that was at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey that I met, and he was from Hawaii, and he used to fly like F-16s, and so another friend that was one of my hippie friends that was older. They used to be a triathlete, still fit. I could do anything with him. I'd say, Les, let's go do this. And he'd like, okay. And it was like we could be paddling around the Monterey Peninsula or whatever. So we did a 3-man team of using a 14-foot paddleboard. And so you're paddling across the channel. You have a pilot boat that you have to hire, and it is crazy.
The pilot boat's there just in case stuff goes wrong?
Well, you got to trade off, too, of like everybody paddling. So in your mind, you're thinking, okay, here to there, you'll paddle for, you know, everything I'd done. If it was like an Ironman triathlon, it's like the first Ironman I did in Canada, I did it in 11 hours and 13 minutes.
Golly.
And so I was thinking, but then once you're out in it, it changes everything. It is, when they say Hawaiian, like when we think of how tall waves are, and they say lower number, but it means its waves are way bigger. So you have a boat, and basically the waves coming through the channel, your boat will just disappear. You don't even see it. Wow. And you will disappear in these sets of all you're doing is trying to steer and keep moving in the direction of Oahu. And it's like standing on a balance ball for 20 minutes at a time. And so whenever you're done, your turn is over, you then, call, the boat comes closer to you, you get off the board, you have the leash on still, and you have the paddle, and you have the other person that's coming to replace you, dives in the ocean, comes over, gets the board, you get the leash on them, they've got that, you give them the paddle, and then they start going. And then you swim over, and I mean, the ocean is pitching almost probably as tall as a roof in some different spots. So it was just like this whole sketchiness of getting on and off of a boat. And they say, when you start to see a wahoo, don't believe you're there, because it's an optical illusion. When you think you're almost close, you're really still 10 miles away. It's 31 miles across this channel. And so we had dolphins with us, swimming with us. We had flying fish around us. Oh. And there's some big tiger sharks, thank goodness, that we didn't see. And so it was, that was probably, of all the things I've ever done, one of the most, endurance sports, all this is basically teaching you to be present in the moment for hours and hours, focusing on what can you do to go faster with less energy. And you have to pay attention to your hydration, your nutrition, all these things. You're never not just kind of out there doing. You're always having to be on it. But I'd never had to be so mentally engaged to just stay on that board, because believe me, if you fell off and you had to get back on, it would
drain
just, crazy. And so one of the points when Les was out there, and Les is in his 60s, and so he just kind of, his brain wasn't working with it. And so it was like hard for him as an older to say, Les, you got to get out. You got to get off the board. We have to have somebody in, and you just need to reset yourself. And so it's like all these other things. There was no ego.
Yeah, he had to be a student then too. He's like, all right, I'll listen.
In the ocean and nature, you have to accept you better respect them all the time, because they will win. And so it's like having respect for the ocean and wildlife, and all these are very indigenous. Everything is one. We're all connected to everything. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason. Everything has a place. And, you treat everything as such. And so we got through it, and it was gnarly. And so, 31 miles across the Molokai Channel.
And in those channels, it's almost like the water's sped up because it's getting forced through.
Oh yeah, the wind is, trade winds are coming straight across.
And you're going against them. So
it's optical. It doesn't even make sense when you're out there doing it, because everything is in such massive flux of up and down that it's not like you're standing. If I were paddling or surfing and you're on the coast, you have markers. You have stuff you can see that aren't going to move. And so you always triangulate your position of like where you're going to take off from and surf to know where to be and all that kind of stuff. But the whole point of doing all these things, originally it could be about, I want to be that person that is different and does these things and shows people that it's not about your ego or pride. It's that you have the willingness to be able to go do things you have never, ever done, to be a student, learn how to do it. But all you're doing is leapfrogging your fitness. So if I've built the fitness level to do an Ironman triathlon, that is as high level as it gets about your resting heart rate, be like in the upper 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's nice.
And max, meaning the only way you can create a max heart rate is on a treadmill in a lab to really prove it out. So I think I was like 209 when I was racing this stuff. And so you basically have changed your whole body by creating this infrastructure like a city. Your capillaries, your veins, your artery, everything is getting more complete to send oxygen to your working muscles of everything that is doing the work, whether you're riding, running, or swimming. And it's so balanced out that it makes you just hyper fit. And so it was like when I finished doing the Ironman stuff, then I started racing off-road triathlons on mountain bikes. Oh, wow. And then trail running.
What was the longest one of those you did?
And 50 Ks
trail running.
of trail running. I did the JFK 50-mile ultra in Boonesboro, Maryland, because then you're just figuring time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's triathlon actually you have recovery because of the different sports of your body's being able to recover through it all, except, once you get down to the run. But running 50 miles, how is your feet, your leg, how's everything going to be able to handle that? So it's all this self-discovery of, I've done that for that long. It'll probably take me about the same length of time to run 50 miles. So you started in Boonesboro, Maryland. You go 2 miles up to the Appalachian Trail. You're on the Appalachian Trail that's smaller, probably this wide, all off Camber Rock for 16 miles. You drop down. You're on a road that goes along a river with gravel. And then the last 11 miles, you're on asphalt. And it feels like you're on clouds by the time you get to the asphalt, because the nuance of something that is a even flat surface is exaggerated, extremely exaggerated by what it feels like when your foot hits the ground. And then adventure racing, like 24-hour adventure racing.
What's that? Is that on the mountain bike?
So that is, you have a course. We have a 4-person team. And this one was at Estes Park. And so mountain bike, and you have mandatory gear, so like 20 pounds of mandatory gear, down to a boat section where you're having to paddle distance. And storm came up, so we actually portaged and ran with a canoe on our head because it got us faster to get there, but you could do all these things. And then finish that. Then it's mountain biking and going up to like 9,000 feet on trails, and then mountain biking back to the transition area, and then hiking in the middle of the night up to 10,000 feet, coming back, getting back on the bikes, going to a rappel site, getting off the bikes, and then, where you put your foot into, and your, whatever, I can't remember what those are called, but basically going up to the top, going across 2 boulders, and then rappelling back down, then getting on the bikes, and then getting back. And I think our team did it in 22 and a half hours. And so again, you're just experimenting. That was at altitude, obviously. You're really seeing all this fitness that you just keep using in different ways.
Was it surprising you, like, that you could do all this stuff? It's pretty badass to, like, be able to be at all those elevations and, like, push your body that hard.
I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You really are just, if you're doing these things,
Mm-hmm.
You've trained your mind to be in the moment. Even though it's 22 and a half hours, you're really focusing on what we're doing, when we're doing, and, is there anything you can do to make something easier? Are you eating? Are you drinking? Are you on and on? It just, you're out there. I think that's a benefit when it comes to business and doing these things like the other things that I'm doing. This whole training of doing all that has allowed my brain to build to stay highly focused for hours and hours doing things and not veering off into, whatever. And so
that's a very good quality, because it's hard to have that flow state, that focus. It's really hard.
And there's no shortcut. It's like what I said about learning the ocean and being in nature, and respect to water is you have to spend a lot of time in those environments for it to become. So it's just like knowing within triathlon stuff or anything, basically you have to do something like a swim stroke or whatever 10,000 times for it to become muscle memory. So if I'm going to have to do something, learn to pedal in that gear, whatever. So then all you can do is focus on, refining all of your movements, that you're using the least amount of energy, creating the most amount of power to go forward. And so I think in a world of cell phones and a whole culture of ADD, because their brains have been conditioned to just everything is moving like that, that this other part of getting people in nature and being present and doing these outdoor things that keep you fit and healthy and connected is really one of the only remedies about mental health that all of this provides. We as humans, I think people that are indigenous, maybe just we have a more of a natural sense of our connection to being in the outdoors and how we see it. And that's evolved for me, from someone that never thought I'd be doing anything of what I've done now for a decade. Mm-hmm. But when it's put on me, I'm usually 100% clear it's the next thing I am supposed to do, period. So then I just do it.
There's such a sense of peace, maybe humbleness. There's just some type of tranquility when you are in those type of moments, like outdoors. I know it may be you on a paddleboard or in those canoes with what are those called? Outriggers? Uh-huh. Or the triathlons and things, but even as simple as just hiking, or like when you tagged me the other day and you were at the Wichitas and you're talking about Quanah Parker Lake and those things. I guess like when I was growing up, I always loved to be outside, and it was one of my favorite things to like be outside, build a shelter, build a fire, which I used to get in trouble for building fires so much. Not like crazy bonfires, but my thing was to like go in the backyard, cover up with some stuff and make a little tiny fire. And like, I never thought of it as being from like my DNA. Yeah. And then when you're saying like it's in you, it starts to make more sense, because that is when I'm at my happiest. Mm-hmm. And I think of recently I went and did an overnight at Quanah Parker Lake. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there and it was a full moon and I had my fire going, and it was just, when it's that right fire where it's not too big, it's just burning well. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there just relaxing, drinking some tea, looking at the full moon, looking back at the fire, played the flute a little bit, and I was just so at peace. And you can find it in other things, but there's something about in nature, whether you were staring that whale in the eye or running miles and miles and miles through the night, that like, it just seems like that's the more important thing to be doing. I think the first time it hit me by myself, because my wife and I really got involved in nature together. So that's been it's been a very strong way of us getting together. Like even when we got married outdoors in a state park area. But the first time it happened to me alone, I think I went to Paladuro Canyon and I hiked by myself to Lighthouse Rock. And I was sitting at not the top of it, but at that plateau. I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at canyons just for however long they go. And that was one of like the first heavy moments of like solo nature where it stuck with me. And then now that's something I crave all the time, and it seems like you're on the same path, but it's nice to meet like minds like that. It's different because there are some people that's just not for them. They're not the hiking type or they're not the outdoor type, but there really is something ancestral about feeling it, I guess.
I mean, if you think what your ancestors would have been doing before, they were saturated in nature all the time. It was their environment. It was everything they knew, knowing every detail about everything. And so one way or another, it's I think some of that just manifests to current day of our roles and what we're doing. But to me, when I get, coming back to Oklahoma City, it just, and when COVID hit and all these things, and I was the lifestyle director at Riversport at the Olympic training site, that hit right when I started. And we were having a meeting about, what to do, how to react, all this. I was like, we're the best thing that's here. We're a thing that gets people out in space on water, and, and that's therapeutic on its own merit of being on or in or near water. I have a friend that passed recently, and his name was Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, and he had wrote a book called Blue Mind, and it's about the neuroscience of why we are so connected to water and the trueness of all this. It's like If you take a shower, you get in, you cleanse yourself, you get out and you're like, feel great. Mm-hmm. You go surfing, dive in. There's no way you come out of the ocean from a surf session that you don't feel revived. You go out into nature. You're actually by water that it's 100% clear that the breakdown of water and mass in humans is the same as this planet. There's no mistake. This is all kind of the same. And we're watching. That's why I'm so involved, I think, now is the sickening of this planet. And, it's like some of the quotes that I always find from different chiefs. And I wish I remembered which one it was, but it was basically saying your heart will be hardened if you don't stay connected to nature. We have to. And so if you think about a city, people have no relationship, nor do they know anything about it or the things that it brings out in us that are the best qualities, and peace of mind and calmness and creative reflection, and our brain's creative capacity is at its highest level when we just get rid of the noise. And I always find solutions, ideas. It's like tomorrow morning, I'm going to the cultural hub, OK, in South OKC. We've been talking, it's about the Respect the Land cultural movement that kind of had in my mind before we ever came back, but then I'd created a nonprofit for the nonprofit of river sport called the River Protectors, about focusing on all the single-use plastic and styrofoam flooding into our waterways here in Oklahoma County, and especially in an Olympic training site, to growing that, to focusing on our whole state. And it just got refined that I never realized till the other day. Before I thought it was like everything, but now I'm like, my focus is on the tribal reservations of all 39 tribes, and that's where my focus will be. And most of the water that's in this state that needs attention and awareness, and people realizing the corruption that's happening, that's destroying these things implicitly in sovereign nations, it has to be brought to the surface, put into light, and for us to really put our focus on it, because that's the beauty of sovereignty, is they can make their own decisions about what they want to do that's in the best interests of the people of that tribe and taking care of it. And so, it's like Chief Hoskins on Earth Day of 24, he wrote an executive order that the Cherokee Nation would no longer purchase single-use plastic water bottles. That's massive. That's the second largest tribe in the country saying we're not going to spend money on what's destroying. And I've never understood, Zach, that, I've communicated a lot and put stuff out and I've had meetings or whatever, really consulting and saying things very specific about the direction we need to be going, because it's another part of an economy that is a forever economy, and the tribes have the money and the wherewithal to create and do these things. And so about sustainability, about being how we do a better job of being the original stewards of all this space, but with current day issues. And so this year he signed another one that was no more polystyrene, no more styrofoam. And so I'm hoping through things that I'm now moving towards, and it's like I said, I just go do it and start, and that's how the Riverport thing started. I wasn't even working there. I went down, looked at the river, and saw how much plastic and styrofoam. I went and got a grabber, a bucket, and started cleaning it up and collecting data. And so...
And that's when you started the Respect the Land as well? Or
that was intentional on long run, but I couldn't do it from that position of being there. I could now that I could see the viability. And when I started getting out, like last year, I thought early on, it's like, nobody's really even gotten out on a lot of our rivers and done stuff. And so because I'd been in paddleboard industry since 2008, I was like, in 2024, I just decided I'm going to start paddling the Illinois. in sections and measure it and see it for myself of pollution, beauty, and record it all. I'm actually creating current day GPS coordinates of distances and where you can get in, where you can get out, and all those. And so I did that last year. This year, I'm currently doing it in the other 5 scenic rivers, and 3 of those are still in the Cherokee Reservation, and the other mountain fork is in the Choctaw. But these are places that have privately held land, and it's a lot more complex to get on the water and just get out there. And so I started this year. On the Barren Fork, I've done 2 sections of it. Flint Creek, I've done half of it. And it was like when I was out there on Flint Creek, a storm was coming in, and I had to get out of the water twice. I've never been in a situation where it is pouring and the thunder and lightning is first time I've ever really thought, wow, I really could get hit by lightning as I'm out of the water just waiting it out, standing in the pouring rain. But then as I start to go through, there was all these spaces where trees and debris were crossing the creek, but nobody takes care of these areas because they're not where the outfitters can go. The only place that has outfitters is the Illinois. And I get to a section and it's huge. There's so many trees covering up Flint Creek. So I'm having to always portage and just drag my inflatable 14-foot board until I get back to the river to get in. And I come around this corner, Zach, and I couldn't believe it. It was so loud with the rain and the sound of the creek and all this. I come around the corner, and as best I can tell, I saw 2 juvenile wolves. And I looked at pictures and all this stuff, and I was like, oh. When I was looking at them, I was like, are these, it was kind of like you've seen all the animals you've ever seen. I was like, it's like their ears are up, kind of like a German Shepherd, but it was like their legs are super long.
The paws are big.
And what happened is the only reason I probably even got to see them was the noise. But as soon as I came around the corner and I'm looking at them, they both turn and look up at me. And man, anytime you see wildlife move, it's bizarre how fast things can move. It's almost hard to understand that they can go from 0 to 70, and they went across the creek, straight up the steep embankment, and were gone like that.
Where's Flint Creek? That's where you saw him, was Flint Creek?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
It's in Cherokee Reservation, so I can't remember if it's what the highway that goes to Siloam Springs. Mm-hmm. Flint Creek goes under that.
So is that eastern Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah. Northeastern Oklahoma.
Northeastern, okay.
And so you're in the Cherokee Reservation, and I don't know, probably 10 miles outside of Siloam Springs, and it kind of follows the highway, and then goes, and then its confluences with the Illinois River.
You saw 2 wolves. That's crazy.
And so I sent it to people I knew at Grand River Dam Authority and their people about, seeing where something like that was seen. And then another friend that works for Oklahoma Department of Wildlife of this. But the rest of it, of paddling the Illinois, I literally was out there in different sections for hours by myself. No one. I had times where bald eagles were roosted on the side, and I'd start getting closer, and they'd fly down the river around a bend. I'd get down there, come around the bend, and they'd fly down further. And so I'll just say it's true. I know I have a connection with all these things, and I think they know why you're there, mm-hmm. what you're doing, and kind of just giving you signs about all kinds of stuff of what you see with wildlife that, or your ancestors or whatever, but it's kind of like just this acknowledgement. They're completely aware that what you're doing and why you're doing it, because you care about them. And, the rest of it is like we've done so many things that just destroy all nature's habitats and everything else and killing them. And so, I think for all of us that are indigenous and connected tribes, everything has, means something, an eagle or a red-tailed hawk or whatever that...
I saw a really beautiful one in Nebraska one time.
Whole thing is
just on the side of the road, and then it's like you said, you notice it, and it notices you notice it, and then it'll fly for you.
Yeah.
And I just saw the wings spread out, and it just flew over this river, and it was all snowy, so it was just standing out.
That's crazy. But then once you accept, and it was like, we were at Saguaro National Park in Arizona, and one way or another we were by, I don't even remember what the tribe was, but there was a shaman, and I said, Kelly, I think I'm going to go talk to it, and so I'd never done anything like that. I'd never been to a place. So I go in, I sit down, and he starts doing it, and we get to the end of my time with him, and he goes, do you know you're a spiritual warrior? And I said, yeah, I do. I know that. And so it's like all these things I'm talking about, are at a much higher level. I'm just doing it, period.
Was there a time you didn't feel the confidence to say that? Or as soon as you changed your mindset, it was just 100%?
I think it had to do with everything that's happened since my parents' passing, where you kind of take on another space and place about who you are as a human being.
You move up the pole.
And then my walk of learning more about our tribes and everything that goes along with it, and just this is what's happened, period, everything. And it's like I could go on forever about all these things that just happen regularly, and I just get it.
For me, when that happens, it starts to seem normal. Like, not that I'm taking it for granted, but when those moments happen, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head.
For you?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, right on.
Well, the other day I went to an appointment, and I'm talking to the lady, right? And she goes, are you Native? Because I had my braids. And I was like, yeah, I'm Comanche and Caddo. And she said, yeah, I read The Empire of the Summer Moon, and I think you should come to this room. I've got to show you something. And I was like, okay, let's go. So she takes me through her house and goes to this room where she had a bunch of artwork. And she literally had this hand-painted Quanah Parker that she did. She said she just felt called to do it. So she paints it, right? Yeah. And then she hands it to me and says, you should take it. And I come home and I've got the same picture right next to it, just a print. Yeah. And so I'm at her house and she's like, you can take this. And I was like, okay, are you sure? You want to make sure. Yeah. But she's like, no, you should have it. And this is what hit me hard. She said, it's an honor for me to meet a descendant of Quanah Parker when I've done so much research on him. This is a blessing to have this moment. And she gave it to me. So it's sitting on my wall now. But then when I left her house, it wasn't a red-tailed hawk. It may have been one of these small kite-style hawks. But as soon as I left her house and I'm going down the road on my motorcycle, which I compare my motorcycle to a horse, a hawk just flies over the road and just curves and takes off. And I'm just riding with this in my backpack on my motorcycle back home. And I think in the past, it would just like, I would feel not worthy or maybe like feel bad. But when she handed it to me, I was like, okay, I'll take this as long as you sign it. And she signed it. Then we did a sage blessing and I left. And like those moments in the past, whether it's in nature or with an individual or even this right now, it would feel like not random, but it's just happening. And now it feels like, oh no, this is what was supposed to happen. And like, why would I be at this random appointment in Midwest City meeting this lady named Deborah that says, are you Native? Like, because you don't walk into someone's house and you're like, I'm Comanche. Like, you should talk to me about this. It just came up and she's like, I've got to give you something. And then I walk out with that. And it's like, there's no way you can't think that everything's connected when those type of moments happen. Now, if you are stuck in this world where it's just what football team is the best and like all these outside influences, then you'll miss it. But when you slow down, then like those moments, like It's like it gives you, for me, it's like it's giving you a little reward. Like you said, it knows your intention of being there. It's like, hey, look, you're on the right path. Let me give you a little bit of encouragement to show you. And not that you're like, oh, I deserve everything now. Every time I go to someone's house, they should give me a hand-painted picture. It's like, you accept the gifts that come your way, and that positivity, that karma continues to build. And then you get into moments like this, or when you're on that river for all that time by yourself, looking at bald eagles, like, that's special in itself. And then to see those two wolves, and that to look a whale in the eye, like the stuff you've done is stuff that people cannot feel it unless they do it. And that's almost cooler than anything in the world, having those type of moments in nature. Like, I applaud you for taking that much intention, and it just made me think of that, because that lady, Deborah, was just like, I've got something for you. And then I walk in her room, in this random house in Midwest City, in the back bedroom with 15 other paintings. There's a Quanah Parker painting. Like, you can't make that up. So it's just crazy to have those moments, you know?
It's probably why we're sitting here right now, and everything that, will play forward after this is, I think we find other people that are the 1%ers through the process of just that being the ones that do stuff. And so many people can just create a rut of their life and just get comfortable and do nothing. And, why I've worked in this industry, and, even with being a race commentator, that was kind of prompted by my wife, that before it was just randomly, and talked about me getting involved with that. But that's been almost everything with my life, that because I did this, like when I left the corporate world and I was intentionally working to learn about the sports industry, meaning bikes, swimming, everything that was triathlon, and dive in to really learn, like how to build a bike and whatever about all the. And so I'm at the bike shop, and there were two brothers, Matt and can't believe I can't remember his name. Anyway, I'll figure it out. So I'd left Anderson Windows. I'm now intentionally building equity and learning the industry to create my very first business in the triathlon industry. And so I'm lifeguarding at a competitive pool where kids are getting scholarships, and I'm being able to be around that and learn from. And I'm at Peter Ritz. So when I told you earlier, when I got my first bike to race in my first triathlon in '94, well, Peter Britz was the one that helped me with all my bike stuff and create all that and get, and start educate me on doing this. And so when I left Anderson, and I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm training for my first Ironman triathlon, towards the end, after I did that race, Peter, they found he had cancer. And so he's in the hospital, and then we find out it's cancer of the lymph nodes, and he's in his early 30s. And so we went to the hospital different times and, talking with him and stuff. And the last time we spoke to him, was the last time he could actually speak. Oh. And shortly thereafter, Peter passed. And so I do my first Ironman in Penticton, British Columbia. We come back, and I kind of just sat down with my wife, Kelly, and I said, Kelly, I think, and this is like everything that's happened this way, I think I'm supposed to help Matt, the brother, with this business after losing his brother. And so I think I'm going to just go ahead and talk to Matt and tell him, I'm here to help. I'll help manage or run the business. So you can not. So I did. And he said, yeah. And so never planned on that, but that was the reason I ended up on a nationally syndicated radio show that I ended up on for over 2 years. That is, I've been sponsored almost my entire career in this industry with the things that I do. So they let me be on the show, and every time I'd speak about my sponsors, I actually got money from my sponsors being on a nationally syndicated radio show. And then they let me start booking the top athletes in the sport things that I was doing and set up interviews. And that's when this company that was in California came, and I helped them with an event they were doing there in Charlotte. And shortly after, offered me to come work for them in California. And this is when all of a sudden this race announcing went from me breaking my foot, announcing at a race that I was in, to then getting brought into the ITU Worlds for Duathlon to announce. This is all like in a 3-month period. They bring me out to California to announce at the national championship for their off-road triathlon series. They then go to Hawaii every year for Ironman in Kona, invited me to come out to there, where they connected me with their race announcer that worked Ironman. And for me to work with him at Ironman in Kona announcing. And then the next thing I did was then I was going to go race at the Xterra World Championship mountain bike triathlon in Maui. And so it's just, I mean, that is everything. It's just keep going forward. That's been, but it's always been being open, have an open mind, not think everything is absolute, how we think through of what we think should be or what we should have. After I'd made enough money working with Anderson, that was the last job that I ever had that I said money will never be a factor of why I do anything after this. It'll be just choosing to do the right thing of whatever I think is supposed to be the next thing I do. And it's built this very unusual life that I couldn't have guessed in a million years. That, and I live in gratitude every day. I take nothing for granted, and and just accept I'm responsible to being that person while I'm on this planet to make a difference. And show people you can too. Stand up.
I appreciate you so much. I think it's so cool to meet people like yourself, because I think my mind shifted within maybe the last 5 to 7 years on being more intentional, positive, grateful, doing things just to do things. And, your wisdom speaks volumes. So it does help a lot just for me and the people listening. And I would feel like a disservice if I didn't mention it. So what are things people could do to maybe get involved with the stuff you do as far as cleaning up the waterways? Because I've seen your videos of a 10-foot by 10-foot section and cleaning up and making content for how do people get involved with that? Is it as simple as they just need to grab a trash bag and go clean up around their area, or?
Well, there's several things that are kind of happening that I've intentionally built now. Is I met a guy that created an app back in 2014 called Literati. And this app is something you can upload onto your phone. And when you're doing a cleanup anywhere, it really doesn't help to clean trash up if you're not collecting data. Otherwise, you're just moving trash from that space to a dump, and no one ever knew what was that. So I have a challenge that anybody in the state of Oklahoma can use. It's called Respect the Land Oklahoma. You just upload the Literati app, pull up challenges, find that one. And we are working towards 50,000 data points of collection. And I'm really focused on our reservations throughout the state of Oklahoma. And next is I work part-time, just like with Polly at REI, because it's just another outstanding podium to talk to people all the time, every time I'm at work, about everything we're talking about. Get outside, start doing something. Whether it's like I was listening as you and Polly, it's about start learning how to climb, start learning how to do different things, because your brain, the more you constantly challenge it to do things that require movement in your body, you will just be building yourself better all the time, but you'll be healthy and you'll have a draw to being out there. The funny thing I found with cleanups and stuff is it's actually because I focus on water, because all of our plastic, styrofoam stuff gets blown in to water in Oklahoma because everything is low. And once it's in, it's not coming out. And so you can start by just, if you're on Instagram, go to Respect the Land Oklahoma, or you can go to Brent Allen Outside. And we started doing monthly cleanups with me and some of the people that work at REI through REI. And so I'll start putting these out there where people can get involved and start building that out. And we're getting ready to do another chapter of Respect the Land. Plenty Mercantile, that's down on Automobile Alley. They also have a location in the First National Center and at the airport. You know, they're all about sustainability, and it was through the same kind of scenario that I've been talking about. Met Tracy and Brittany, a mother-daughter that own Plenty Mercantile, and that their whole precipice was about sustainability. But then I find out they're Cherokee. And another person that owns Fertile Ground, or is part of Fertile Ground, it's co-op, Terry Craghead, he's Cherokee. So you start finding, here are all these people that are leading by example with business models for the betterment, sustainability here, are the ones out there doing the work and setting the stage for the future and building that economy, because it is a absolute economy of finding the solutions for the things that are polluting and destroying our state and our waterways. And the other part, lifestyle sports industry, getting more people building careers like I have, of everything I've done from being a coach in endurance sports, athlete, paddleboard instructor, guide, race commentators. It really allows you to, my last business that I created in California before moving back, is that I'd never done it, but I intentionally was, I'm going to take my lifestyle, the things that fill me up the most, and everything I do business-wise will fit into that model. So it's actually living in a way that allows me to be at the highest level of productivity and creativity and be energized to do stuff, is by doing that. So my time in the ocean, which ended up being time in the ocean cleaning up and taking care of, and it just goes on and on. And I never thought I'd be working at REI, but it just became clear to me, and I knew the guy that was the manager that I dealt with quite a bit before, and just another intuitive thing. It's like, can I work part-time here? And so now I'll be there a year this month. That it's great having something that's that big and has that much power to change the trajectory of what's happening. They have so many things that they put out there that people can sign letters and get involved what's happening to our environment and to our national parks, everything. But to me, whatever gets put on your heart, start there. And I always say, if you're going to build something, start with what surrounds you, that it's close. And that's why I like that river sport. I mean, I'm looking out the window at the area that we were cleaning up, and the tragedy that this is an Olympic training site in the United States of America, and it looks like a dump of this much trash floating in it. And we just haven't gotten the message, Zach. The answer is, we got to quit using all this bloody plastic and styrofoam, period. Everybody that's handing you that cup when you go through a drive-through, they have no skin in the game of the cost it is costing, what it's doing to our water, Well, it about made me jump straight up. I was like in the zone.
Let me shut this door. I knew he was going to do that.
You got it.
I told you he was going to do it.
Yeah, you did. I wasn't prepared for it.
No, golly. Well,
but so the rest of it is like any business. Just take the state of Oklahoma, 39 tribes, look at the maps. I put all this stuff up as an educational component of what I put on the Instagram, so people can start to understand a lot of things I never understood. Mm-hmm. And so I'm intentional about all these details, where the aquifers are in the state, where's all the water that is under the ground. And
all the rivers that are coming from other locations that move water into here. Why do we have 5,100 dams in this tiny state? And, changing the water's natural direction of humans never ends up being a positive. It always negatively affects nature all the time. And so we have this really unusual setup. And, the sad thing is like with Governor Stitt, he signed a law in 2019 that barred any municipality in the state of Oklahoma from doing anything about single-use plastics and styrofoam. So they're doing this intentionally because these are all petroleum-based products. That's why. And it's no different than the mega chicken farms that are all throughout northeastern Oklahoma that of what's happened with that. And they're one of the only industries that doesn't have to do anything about taking care of their own waste of what is that has been bleeding into the aquifers, into our scenic rivers, and destroying it. It's just, we have a lot of real direct corruption that is so wrong and so obvious. It just blows my mind. But the challenge is, and I had a friend of mine that kind of helped me understand it better, is, our tribes, when you think of everything, there's 39 tribes that got taken from their homelands and left with nothing and got put in the middle of this country so they could basically try to control the Indians and put them in one big space. And here we are in 2025, and you look at their financial positions and everything. 60% of the state of employment is through the tribes. Everything that they had gone from nothing to this, our tribes are our best thing that will have the capacity to change what we have here to a healthy environment, which will create a better world for all of the children and everybody that's going to get a windfall from it that are not part of the tribes, of us building a healthier Oklahoma. And I'm like, why wouldn't we? I mean, we are basically watching the first ever migration of people in this country leaving coastal environments because of weather and moving inland. You couldn't be a realtor at a better time, because no one's ever seen what we've seen happen since 2020 of a change in the cost of living and housing and all this. So for the first time ever, for me, understanding everything of how Oklahoma has been built out over the years in Oklahoma City, is we have more people and more businesses coming here than ever before. We've always treated things prior to now as do anything you can to get businesses to come to Oklahoma and people to move to Oklahoma and let them do anything they want. And if there's ever a time we need to be really crystal clear of vetting any business that wants to set up here, if it's polluting the land or the air or anything, isn't bringing things that will do the opposite, we should be saying no. And because people are going to keep coming. And you think 2020, 25th largest city in the United States, 23, 20th largest city in the United States. This is insane. But the thing that's part of this, Zach, is that they kept building this county bigger and bigger. And when it's like you learn the trajectory of how it all happened, they kept thinking if you just get more people, we have more money to take care of it. They never thought, how much is it going to cost to take care of the infrastructure of a county this big that has 8,000 miles of streets in it? Think about water lines, everything else. All that has to be rethought. We're in a situation that they're always thinking, just get attention, get something else new and shiny to divert making good decisions. They're really how we play the long game to really structure, stabilize, and create a sustainable design for the place that we live. But that will be a model to the world of how you take something like that and move it into this next arena. And that's where the money is. But there's a lot of people that don't want to see one thing change. And so when you're talking business, when you really talk legitimate things that make perfect sense about business ideas and who should jump in and start investing in, doing this other stuff is where it's at forever. If we're polluting our waters, we're shooting ourselves in the foot about tourism. People come to the state because of the water that we have. Makes not 1 ounce of sense, and that it's purely corrupt, that we would do anything other than our best to clean up everything at the highest level, because it brings in money to the state at a much greater rate. Building the lifestyle sports industry, getting people outside doing more things. You're then creating your stewardship model of more people that understand it is our responsibility to take care of these spaces and places that we go to. It was just like me coming down to Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge intentionally to move slow, pick up trash in a space that I remember you talking about your story when you went camping. That's why I picked that place and the rest of it. But then it's just showing you, it's just disrespect. It's like we've lost our way about just taking care of the place we live. We've allowed it to have no connection with nature. And, when I was a kid here, it was like, this was normal. If you were taught about hunting and fishing and camping and stuff, there was basic rules to the road. This is what you do. When you pack up your camp, you leave it better than you found it. I mean, if there's one sentence that goes to everything in Oklahoma, if everybody just did a little bit of something to leave it better than you found it, doesn't matter what it is, in your own neighborhood, at the nearest body of water, and make it normal. That's why this whole Respect the Land Oklahoma is indigenous based with our 39 tribes, and it's a cultural movement. That's why I didn't want to create another nonprofit. I want to create a cultural shift that we all understand it's in everybody's best interest to get to work and for us to create the solutions and make this place healthy and belonging. Don't think about looking and thinking about yourself. Think about the generation that's coming behind you. This is our job, and it's the least we can do.
Mm-hmm. And your passion, your wisdom, your care, you're setting an example. So I appreciate you sitting down with me, but I appreciate you kind of passing it, or paying it forward to me and kind of sparking new interests on my heart too. And I'd love to get you on here again and tell more stories, because obviously you've got some good ones, and I just am thankful that you felt the need to accept my invitation, and for you sitting down with me. It's a big deal, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate what we say this, but I think that's missing in society, and that's why I'm intentional about it. We should be building one another up and helping one another and pulling out the best character traits that people have and supporting and growing that, because we're in a time where it is so the opposite. Simple words: be the change you want to see. I mean, walk it.
The door's always open for you. Come back and see me. I appreciate you a lot, and we'll get out of here. But Brent, just thank you so much.
Pleasure.